Welcome, everybody, to the LIPSEY'S Aim Higher podcast. I am Rob Eberzino, and flanked to my left is Jason Klossner, and to my right, the dangerous one, Dale Luke. We've got an exciting little show today, a little program for you today.
Absolutely.
Brand new launch, 2 new mountain guns, mountain gun launch part 2.
Yeah.
We've got the Mountain Gun 610 chambered in 10 millimeter, first of its kind. We'll get into that. And we've got the Mountain Gun 617 in 22 long rifle, nearly first of its kind, and we'll get into that as well. So, Jason, we've kept this under wraps for a little while. How excited are you to get this out into the world now?
Yeah, it's Rob. You know, one of the things when Smith Wesson and ourselves kind of collaborated on reintroducing the Mountain Gun series was we didn't want to just do one model and be done with it. So it was always kind of a plan to roll out about every 6 months, potentially some new additions. And yeah, you kind of hit it on the head. We got a brand new model in the Mountain Gun series that's never been done, and we've got one that's, I mean, the rarest of rare. They only, I think, made 43 of them is what we can ascertain.
You were talking about that yesterday. Like, so why? What was the purpose of making 43 in the first place?
I don't know. I haven't been able to get a straight answer. I don't know. But the good news is we're going to make more than 43.
Well, good. Good.
We'll
make 44.
We sold 43 in the building so far.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, no. The Mountain Gun series has been extremely popular. We launched the 629, which is the 44 Magnum in frame, and the 686 Plus, which was the L frame 357 and a 7-shot at SHOT Show.
Yeah. It was huge.
It was huge, and they're still in high demand. And before anybody says, "Oh, wow, I haven't even got my other one yet," you're introducing new ones. When you're collaborating on these things, when things come available, you just kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah.
And so
we get a lot of questions on that. They're just these guns are in such high demand. Smith Wesson's putting them out as quick as we can. We certainly are selling them as quick as we get them. So
right. And just so you know, too, they're going to continue to make 629s and 686s. This is just in addition to.
So the wish list continue to grow.
Yeah. So this isn't a replacement. We'll continue to run.
Mm-hmm.
You know, any of these special editions that we do with Smith & Wesson, as long as there's demand for them, and Smith & Wesson has the capability to make them, we're gonna keep ordering them. So.
Well, let's start with like the kind of maybe an easy question. You know, the mountain gun. Somebody had asked recently, what makes a mountain gun a mountain gun? And I didn't know if that was just a cool moniker to put on this, or if there's a little bit of meaning or purpose behind it. I know there's some history with this gun. So
yeah, I mean the Mountain Gun series originated in the late '80s. A couple of friends of ours, Tommy Campbell and Ross Seifert, Mike Martin from Smith & Wesson at the time, they kind of all collaborated on an idea of making a more carryable Smith & Wesson revolver for the mountains. Yeah. You know, all these guys lived in mountains, hunted in the mountains. You know, at the time you had the heavy full bull barrel model 629s. Mm-hmm. They were a little bit heavier. They had square butts and everything else. So what they wanted to do was make a feature set that cut weight off these guns, but not to the point to where they weren't still shootable. Right. You know, you can make these you take like a 329 PD. It's even way lighter than these, but
it's going to get uncomfortable.
they're not easy to shoot, right? And they're very hard. They're hard to master.
Yeah.
This really is a great balance of lightweight and shootability. So probably the main 3 things that were idyllic to the Mountain Gun series is first the tapered barrel. That's going to be your first thing. So they took that traditional bull barrel and just put a taper, and that taper is very reminiscent of the same barrel profiles that they used pre-World War II. Very tapered, graceful lines on those guns. It shaves a little bit of weight off the front end of the gun. It does change the balance point. The second thing that they did was, and this is what Ross Seifert was really animate about, was doing that black powder chamfer on the front edge of the cylinder. Again, not a huge weight reduction there, but that bevel just gives it that graceful pre-war look. And it does make it a little bit less rough on your leather going in and out. You don't have that square edge on there that can kind of tear up some of your holsters and stuff like that. The third thing was they did it with a round butt grip frame. So even though they have the square butt grips, the actual grip frame is round underneath. So that does shave weight. Gotta keep in mind, at that time, there wasn't a lot of round butt, especially in-frame Smith guns. So those were all three big design changes at the time. They also added the narrow hammer, the narrow trigger, and really made it reminiscent to like the 1926 .44 specials and stuff like that were made. So that's kind of the bones of the mountain gun right there. On a general rule of thumb, it knocks about, depending on the model, about 3 to 5 ounces off the standard gun with a heavy barrel.
Okay, so just streamlined generally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a streamlined.
Streamline,
version.
graceful lines. To me, they're the best looking of the Smith & Wesson lineups. And I think we even said it in our previous announcement with the 629, 686. To me, the mountain guns represent the best of old Smith & Wesson and new Smith & Wesson.
Yeah.
You get the graceful lines and looks and handling of a pre-war gun, but you get all the modern upgrades. You get magnum chamberings, you get endurance packages, you get ball detent lockups, you get all those kind of things. So they really gives you something that you can use and shoot on every day, but give you the feel of those old classics.
Yeah.
So it's a resto mod for
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Well, we got to get out and shoot both of these, and we'll talk about shooting a little bit, and we'll circle back, and we can kind of get into the guns a little bit more too, and some of the props we have on the table here. But so shooting yesterday, we literally were just out yesterday shooting these things, and we'll start with you. So you on the 610, what were kind of your initial thoughts? You know, picking the gun up, getting a feel for it.
You know, just the balance in general
Yeah.
of the gun is great. Handling with you know, the flash chrome hammer and trigger. After many rounds, it was still just smooth as glass.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have the horsepower. You know, you got a big bore performance without all the recoil on that gun. And
That was kind of the theme yesterday, I guess.
Yeah, it really was. It was easy to shoot.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
What did you think? What were kind
Well,
of your
you know,
initial
10
thoughts on it?
millimeter, and some people might go, why a 10 millimeter in an end frame? Well, a couple reasons. One, 10 millimeter has never been more popular than it is today. You know, we're seeing a huge resurgence, even in the striker fired auto pistol world. It's outselling 45 by a pretty big margin.
Yeah.
And so 10 millimeters hot, it's popular. There's a lot of good ammunition being developed for 10 millimeter, both in defensive world, but also in the outdoor world. A lot of heavy hard cast rounds and stuff like that, which sometimes don't work so great in auto pistols. This gun is going to work 100%.
Yeah.
So you got the advantage. You also got the advantage of being able to shoot 40 Smith & Wesson through this gun.
Right, so if you're like me and you've got some old 40 cal gun laying around,
He's a dinosaur still. My SIG 226 DAC model and 40 is my main carry gun.
Shut up.
I'm like, yeah, you actually have a a viable platform.
Yeah,
to shoot at.
I got a pretty nice surplus of 40 ammo. That
Well,
maybe
and
I
40
can
is
shoot
relatively inexpensive, and a lot of people have it sitting there. So you know, yes, there's a little bit of a they never did chamber the mountain guns in a 10 millimeter before.
Yeah.
But the standard 610 with the full lug heavy barrel has always been a great seller.
Mm-hmm.
And little tidbit is generally considered one of the most accurate of all the Smith revolvers.
Yeah.
Those 10 millimeter 610s were always shot really, really good.
Yeah.
This gun was no different. It shot fantastic. But like Dale was alluding to, the 10 millimeter in this gun gives you that 40 plus caliber, big bore, opportunity for performance, but without the recoil penalty at all. And if you don't hand load, if you buy over the counter stuff, this gun will be way less expensive to shoot in volume than a 44 Magnum or a 45 Colt or anything, a 41 Magnum.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, those three calibers are great, and they do have more horsepower than the 10 millimeter. If anybody tells you that they don't, then they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
But on the flip side, if you really want to master a big bore double action revolver, you won't do it any cheaper than with a 10 that you can shoot 40 Smith & Wesson through.
You know, speaking of some of the different cartridges, we had a few. You guys were running a few yesterday.
Yeah.
What did you find maybe some of the differences were? I know we had some hand loads out there too. Even had some hand loads and a couple different. I forgot exactly which ones we had. You guys can go over that. But what did you feel is any of the differences in kind of how this thing shot?
You know, believe it or not, recoil wise, I didn't feel that big of a difference through any of them.
Yeah.
We chronographed a few of the rounds. We were cruising a little over 1130.
Well, depending on the load. So what we found and what we wanted to test, because I know questions we're going to get is, hey, this gun's got a 4.1 inch barrel, but with revolvers, you get a cylinder gap. So you're going to lose a little of that velocity that you potentially can with an auto pistol. So how does it compare with an auto pistol?
Right.
The good thing is that really when they say it's a 5-inch auto pistol barrel, it's really only about 4.5 or even a little less, because they include the chamber in the measurement, not just a rifle part.
Okay. So
if you compare a 4-inch auto 10 millimeter to a 4-inch revolver, we found that this 4-inch revolver actually shot a little faster than the 4-inch barreled auto pistols and was more on par with the 5-inch auto pistols, at least with this particular gun. And look, they're going to vary. Cylinder gap, everything else.
Right.
Every gun's a law unto itself.
Right, right.
But this load right here is my hand load. This is a 200 grain hard cast, wide flat nose coated bullet that out of a 5-inch, my Smith Wesson 1006, which is a 5-inch old DASA semi-auto pistol, runs 1,200 feet per second on the dot. My 4.25 inch M&P 2.0 10 millimeter, or a 4-inch, it's a 4-inch gun, I'm sorry, it was running 1150. This gun, it was running 1175.
Right in the middle.
So right in the ballpark there. So again, every gun's, you might get one that'll shoot 1210, one might shoot 1140. It's just each gun's its own. But it was right in the ballpark. So really no loss in velocity there. These 40 Smith & Wesson loads, these are just some PMC 180 grain full metal jacket. Out of a Glock 23, they're running about 950. They're running 960 out of this gun.
Yeah.
So really there was no difference in performance.
Yeah.
But the good news is, whereas some of these hard cast wide flat nose loads don't feed very well, especially at the higher velocities out of an auto pistol, you shoot them all day out of this.
Sure.
No problem. So any of your 220, 230 grain, big wide hard cast flat nose, that are running about 1150, 1200, you'll get the same out of that. Well, let's think about that for a second. Most of your factory 44 Magnum ammunition these days, it'll say on the box, 240 grain at 1300 or whatever. You chronograph them out of a 4-inch barrel, you're more likely to get about 1180 to about 1250. You take a 220 grain Buffalo bore hard cast load that's running about 1150, 1200 out of this gun.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of difference.
Right.
Yeah,
When
you're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Splitting
Now,
hairs.
that 44 Magnum, you have the ability to load heavier stuff faster.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at factory ammunition that's over the counter and readily available, a lot of times that 10 millimeter stuff is kind of clocking very similar, because a lot of that 44 Magnum ammunition doesn't seem to be loaded quite as fast as. Now, the advantage 44 Magnum has is that it's a bigger diameter, everything else, heavier weight, it's going to penetrate more.
Right.
But the 10 millimeter will do a lot out of a revolver and do it with a lot less recoil.
Yeah.
That 200 grain at 12 out of this gun was very comfortable to shoot.
That being said, with the 44 Magnum and this, where do you see kind of a good practical use, for this gun here?
This one, so for me, like if you live in the South, or if you live in the non-grizzly area,
Right.
44 mags and 45 calls, I love them. Don't get me wrong; they're my favorites, and I would never pick a 10.
That's a lot of power for here where we're at.
But for where most people live, 10 millimeter is plenty.
Yeah.
And it doesn't beat you up.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper to shoot.
Right.
And I can go shoot some really cheap 40 Smith & Wesson through it and actually get pretty good with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's got a lot going for it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a very accurate gun.
Yeah.
I mean, we shot these things and we were shooting at 10 and at 25.
Yeah.
And 10 yards is not that far.
Yeah.
But when you're putting a whole cylinder in basically an inch little circle double action at 10 yards shooting fairly fast, that's not bad.
Yeah, and you guys put some rounds through there too. And you guys,
we shot it a bunch.
And you were shooting quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where that gun fills out. If somebody who's already got a lot of 10 millimeter 40 Smith & Wesson ammo but wants to get into the big bore revolver world, this is a great way to do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the 22 a little bit. I'll let you kick that one off. I mean, that one. You shot it. I shot it.
That one stole the show.
She shot it.
Yeah. I really wanted to come home with me. So
dive into that one.
I mean, for the mountain gun platform, all the same, flash chrome parts, and it's a 10 shot 22 long rifle. The trigger pull on it was so smooth.
Yeah, it's nice.
And,
it's like a tiny little Cadillac of a gun, It really
yes,
is.
yes. And, 22s are known to be extremely, extremely dirty, especially with a lot of rounds. And we shot a lot of different rounds through it.
Yeah.
We just didn't stick with one brand. We wanted to truly test the gun.
It was fun shooting it because yesterday it was about 173 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And the fact that we said, let's shoot it a little bit more.
Yeah, no,
Usually we're like, all right, hey, let's get
the AC.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
We were like, nah, let's go ahead and keep shooting this one. It was.
I found when I picked it up to me, and I don't shoot a ton of, especially 22 revolvers like that, but I found it to be a little hefty. But you said it's right on par, average wise, as far as weight with
traditional
some of the
steel
other,
frame.
This
one comes in at 35. I think it was 36 ounces.
36 ounces.
Not heavy by any means, but and of course, the recoil is just zero.
No, it's nothing.
I mean, it's
it's
great.
The grips, the bear hug grips, they just mold to your hand.
Yeah,
it's really just so well done, and the gun is just so well balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 22, you kind of alluded to it earlier. There's this big mystery why they only made 40 something of them back in 2012 or something like that, and I
must have been a test run of some kind.
Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe a distributor ordered them and then backed out.
Right.
You never know. Whatever. But regardless, it's always been, and they only made those with the key lock too. Those were never a no lock gun.
Yeah.
So the only way you could ever get a 617 mountain gun would have been lock. So, but those guns command crazy premiums. There's a lot of people who actually collect the mountain guns.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that that was obviously the holy grail. I mean, only 43 guys who collect mountain guns got one, and no one that collectors, probably somebody's got two of them. So they're because those out. So we really, really were adamant about wanting to do this one, and the mountain gun really pairs well because the standard 617 has a full lug standard weight barrel, so it's heavy. This one, I believe, knocks about 4, maybe 5 ounces off of that standard 617, so it makes it a little livelier in the hand. Mm-hmm. Dale alluded to the trigger action. You got a 10-shot cylinder, so that throw is pretty short. It really stroked that trigger really nice. The flash chrome parts, as I tell you, from the time we started shooting to the time we ended shooting,
there was no change.
You could already tell that the gun was starting to slick up.
Yeah.
It was already starting to take a set in there.
Expand on the flash chrome parts a little bit for anyone who's not too familiar.
So the flash chrome parts, your hammer, your trigger, Smith Wesson has done different finishes over the years. For back in the 80s and probably early 90s, they did a lot of, or in 70s even, they did a lot of flash chroming on the stainless guns to give it that kind of match that look. Mm-hmm. I've got a bunch of older guns that have those parts, and what I found, it seemed like to me, at least over the time, they tended to slick up a little better just from shooting or dry pressing the guns.
A little wear helps them out.
Yeah. So I think it's just a slicker finish,
and it's also almost like a self-lubricating type of part.
Right.
And the flash chrome is truly intended for things that really have a very tight tolerance, which a lot of revolvers do.
Right.
So Smith kind of got away from that and was doing the color case parts.
Yeah.
And those are good too. They did their thing. But my original mountain gun that I've got from '93, which was technically the second run, had the flash chrome parts. And so when we were working with the Smith & Wesson engineering team on the original launch, I was like, man, I really would like to go back to that, because I think not only does it look good and it looks right on these guns, it also does have some functional benefit.
Yeah.
And so they said, yeah, I think we can do that. And so when they did, I think it's a big benefit. Now, I think the handful of 617 original guns had the color case. I know the original 686 mountain gun from 98 had color cases. I've got one. But the early 90s and late 80s mountain guns would have had the flash chrome.
And I think my 625 has case hardened.
I think it does, yeah. So narrow hammers, narrow triggers, smooth face, not serrated. We wanted these guns to be set up to shoot double action like the original pre-war guns were. And you start getting into the wide hammer spurs and the wide serrated triggers. Those work a little better for single action shooting. Yeah. But you're touching off a heavy big bore mountain gun. Serrated triggers are probably not the best option for you. So that's why
you're taking away from the original design of what the mountain gun was.
Yeah, everything slim and trim. I mean,
Yeah.
it all adds up too. You knock a little here off here, a little
Right.
here, and all.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you
That's where
got
get
it. You got an extra
4, 5,
ounce.
6 ounces,
Yeah,
whatever
so-
it is. Yeah.
But yeah, so the 617, one of the things when we were in development, we didn't know if we were going to pull off was the gold bead on the front sight
Yeah.
because that front sight's so short.
Yeah.
And Brett Curry, he's one of the head engineers at Smith Wesson. He doesn't take no always for an answer, so he's like, no, I think we can try to do it. And so he worked it and worked it and worked it. And I'm so glad we were able to get it on there because, man, it made shooting that gun so easy
So
yesterday.
accurate. Yeah.
We
Everybody shot it well. all
we
shot
did.
it,
Yeah.
So we had one of the targets we had was an 1.5 dot, and I put it on the timer. We shot 10 shots at 10 yards in 10 seconds, and they were all in that 1.5 circle.
Yeah.
And that was double action.
Right.
So I don't know what else you want from a 22. And you get, like I said, it's got 10 shots in there. Really, really handy little field gun. There's a lot of times when you don't necessarily need a big bore revolver
Right.
in the woods. You might have a big bore rifle with you. You might be carrying a lever action 45-70, but you want to have a 22 pistol for a small game or whatever.
Yeah.
You might be on a trap line or something like that.
Exactly.
These are the kind of guns that do that. You might be wanting to train a new shooter on how to shoot double action revolvers.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it at cheaper
It's a great use for it,
than a
yeah.
22.
Yeah.
And you got the same feel, you got the same size, weight as a traditional K-frame, model 67, model 10, whatever else, but you're doing it in a 22 long rifle.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, really excited about that one. I've long said that if you had a 617, a 686, and a 629 mountain gun, you got all your
Yeah.
double action revolver bases covered.
It's completely
Yeah.
covered.
For the woods. I mean, you got a 22, a 357, and a 44. I mean, you'd have everything covered. And I'm really happy that we were able to keep and our relaunch of the mountain guns, keep the look consistent across the board.
Yeah.
Where we got the gold bead fronts, we've got the black rears,
I was going to say,
flash chromes.
Kind of cover all the.
we got the Tyler Gunworks bear hugs, which are phenomenal.
Yeah, they are.
These, even though this is a K frame, it uses the KL, so it's the same grip as the 686 Plus, which has been a lot of really good feedback on that grip.
Yeah.
Now, one thing they did do is they did add the ball detent lockup to this K-frame. Now, obviously, you don't need it for strength.
Right.
It's a 22. But when Brett Curry was working on redesigning all these frames, he wanted to add it to these smaller frames because, hey, we're doing a K-frame in 22. That doesn't mean necessarily we're going to stop at 22. So if you're going to redesign this frame, design it for other cartridges that you would want it.
Yeah.
Have the ball
Let's go
detent.
the extra mile and not
Yeah,
sell
so
ourselves
let's do
short.
this once and do it the right way. Because you got to remember, to take these locks out of these guns, they didn't just take the old frames and just not drill a hole and put the parts in.
Right.
They actually had to redesign the whole frames because some of the internals are different.
Mm-hmm.
They did things like beveling out had to bevel out the front of the frame here so it matches up with the tapered barrel better. So each one of these frames is a new frame in its own right. So instead of having to do it again to maybe do a different cartridge in the K frame, let's just go ahead and do the beefier one, and then anything under it will work just fine.
Right.
The platform's there. Let's build on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of standardize it again. It keeps the consistency with the guns, which was important.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fun factor is a 10 out of 10 for that for sure. And
Oh, yeah.
and the form factor is a 10 out of 10 for both of these guns. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's it was incredible. We had a blast with that yesterday.
So there's
No
a couple,
pun intended.
Yeah,
so there's a couple little hacks on this 10 millimeter that is kind of unique because a lot of people might be experienced shooting moon clipped revolvers, and you kind of have to use the moon clips
Especially on a 40 cal.
on a double action.
Yes.
Because on a single action, a lot of people, well, you don't need them on a Ruger Blackhawk
Right.
convertible. Well, that's because when you're ejecting the spent rounds, the ejector rod is punching the inside of the case, so you're not using a star to
Right,
eject the rounds out. And also, you're actually using a different cylinder, so that when you buy a Ruger Blackhawk convertible, that ACP cylinder or that 10 millimeter cylinder or whatever else it is, the chamber is cut so you actually headspace on the case mouth. It's not on the rim. So that's why they have two cylinders instead of one. Now, on a double action revolver, it's different. You're able to use the same cylinder, but the problem is that in order to headspace, you headspace on the case mouth. So you got to use the moon clips for extraction because there's no rim.
Right.
Now, the cool thing about the 10 millimeter is that you can also use 40 Smith & Wesson. So it's just a little bit shorter than 10 millimeter. But you have to use the moon clips.
Yeah, they slide down in there.
Because if you don't, since the chamber is cut to headspace on 10 millimeter, it's going to sit down about a 16th or below flush.
Right.
So it won't fire. So you got to use that. But you don't have to technically use the moon clips for the 10 millimeter for it to fire.
Yep.
You can load the rounds without the moon clip. We tried it a bunch of times. We tested that out thoroughly. Worked just fine. Now, when you go to extract the empty rounds, there's nothing for the extractor star to catch, so it just slides right over the rimless case.
Right.
So you have to manually pluck them out. But the 10 millimeter has the advantage of having a really, really deep extractor groove. It's very pronounced, unlike a 45 ACP or a 9 millimeter. And so it was super easy just to pluck those right out.
Yeah.
So in a field situation where you're not worried about
not
fast speed loads,
right,
you're not worried about extended gunfights or whatever
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Honestly, the moon clips are kind of optional.
Yeah.
Some ways it actually might even be preferable not to load with the moon clip, because now with moon clips it's all or nothing. You load 6, you dump 6.
Yeah.
If you only shoot 2 rounds and you want to top off your gun,
there goes your other 4.
you gotta go figure. You gotta go monkey around. Whereas I can just pluck
one of these.
Yeah, I can just go pluck 2 rounds out.
Yeah.
And then reload. And just so happens, I got to digging around and looking at my stuff.
It's a little hack you were using yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a standard Bianchi or Tough Products 38 357 Magnum speed strip holds 10 millimeter perfect. So we were actually loading this 610 with the speed strips. So again, if you're carrying this for personal protection, I would go with moon clips, whatever. But in the field, just going out, in a hunting situation or whatever else, I actually will load this gun up without the moon clip and probably carry a couple of these to top off with.
Yeah.
And you'll be just fine.
That's
But
awesome.
again, if you're going to shoot 40 Smith & Wesson, got to use them.
Yeah.
Now, Dale, you got an education yesterday on demooning these things. Why don't you share it a little bit with you?
I truly did. So if when this little tool, this demooning clip, when it's used properly, you will not take off
Or
several
use it all,
layers.
frankly.
Or use it at all. Yeah. I might as well.
This was not in play yesterday.
Well, even when it was, I wasn't educated or my little small brain.
I didn't think he needed the instruction manual.
No.
Apparently he did.
Yeah. Always read the instruction manual. But, it's a true fast way, and it prevents you from bending up the moon clip itself by trying to get the spent cartridges or even alive cartridges off of the moon clip itself. It's got a little small recessed lip on it. You just keep that on the outside of the cartridge itself. And if you just give it a small turn, and then the round falls down into the center of the tool itself. So it makes it extremely easy. Don't be like me, put your thumb in the center of the hole and try to pull them out directly, because you are going to lose some skin. And so it made it really easy to get those rounds out of that moon clip, the spent rounds.
And these moon clips were real easy to load. There's a tool that actually loads the moon, helps snap the rounds in. Honestly, I didn't think he really needed it on this one. They snap in real simple.
He's popped right in yesterday.
Yeah. Especially when you start getting 1 or 2 rounds in there. Go ahead, Rob, show it.
I don't have my
prove us wrong.
Okay. To be fair, I don't have my glasses on. I'm probably somewhere halfway up the round.
Yeah, you got to put it in. It actually helps if you put it in the extractor groove.
I seriously can't see
that. Jason just said was an enlarged groove.
There we go.
Yeah, like that. That's why you don't let marketing people demo live. Yeah. So, but anyways, don't let the moon clips intimidate you on this 610, because in a lot of situations, you really don't even need them, quite honestly. We checked, obviously, standard in-frame 4-inch holsters work just fine. This Simply Rugged sourdough pancake is ideal for the mountain gun. The
shark skin, very sexy.
Yeah, that's
very sexy.
Yeah, that's a nice one there. On the
that is part of the original Jaws
mannequin
that they used 50 years ago.
The 617 is built on a K-frame, so it is slightly dimensionally smaller than the 686. However, it worked great in this Bronte CCR that I have that's for an L frame, but it's got a tension screw. So all I did was I put about two turns on the tension screw, snugged it right up. But if you're looking for a non-tension screwed holster, look for a 4-inch K-frame holster for that one. So all worked really well.
Any other thoughts? Go over some final thoughts, tips, anything like that? What do you think?
Dale, go ahead.
Tips-wise, start saving your money, because this entire series is probably going to break me. And
yeah, right. A lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick up a second job. Out of the box, these things are ready to play. They are ready to go. That's really all I have. I mean, I'm truly speechless on this entire platform so far.
Well, I'll tell you, the 617 really impressed me. Anytime you're extracting 10 rounds at a time, you can have issue. We shot this gun a lot yesterday, and we shot everything from CCI mini mags to every gun guy's got the little bucket of leftover 22s that just
or
go
the
like
plastic bag
that goes into a pile, and so it's just a mix mash of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I brought that little bag because I was like, all right, this is going to really test it, because some of this stuff was old and who knows where it came from.
Right.
And shot it all great. We had no misfires.
No
with
misfires at all.
Extraction was super easy and slick.
And we got it dirty.
Yeah.
Oh, it was filthy. Yeah.
The real, which I was super happy about, my actually favorite rimfire load ever is the Winchester 40 grain PowerPoint load. I've been shooting that thing forever, and that gun shot that load so good.
It stacked them.
I mean, just stacked them. And I was like, man, that sample is coming home with me. It is already sighted in for the preferred load I like, and it shoots. Extraction was super, super easy. You know, we got 10 rounds. There's companies that make Tough Products makes a 10-round speed strip for 22. Speed Bees, I believe, makes a speed loader for it. So there's options there. Really, really impressed how good that gun functioned, and we got it really dirty. So I was really, really happy with that. The 10 millimeter, again, I was surprised at how comfortable it was to shoot. It came in at 40 ounces, so it's about an ounce heavier than the 44 Magnum, but that's because the chambers and the hole in the barrel smaller, so you got more steel. But it really, really soaked up that recoil of these heavier hard cast loads that it can be a little snappy in an auto pistol.
You can see too, if you check out the video, the shooting video we did. It's on our YouTube channel at LIPSEY'S Guns. You can see visibly, because I'm watching for the recoil as you started shooting it first, just to see kind of kind of see the snap in it or whatever.
Right.
It really wasn't there. I mean, honestly.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the thing is, and we didn't really touch on this, but there's still a lot of people who like to carry large bore revolvers for personal protection. And let's face it, 10 millimeter has a lot more advancements in defensive ammunition than 44 Magnum, 45 Colt, even arguably 357 Magnum. I mean, there's more defensive 10 millimeter ammo out there.
Right.
You got CCI Gold Dots, you've got HST.
With a number of different grain weights.
You got Critical Duty from Hornady. You got a lot of stuff in 10 right now. And the good news is that whatever velocity ratings that they're getting out of those auto pistols, you're getting the same out of this gun. So there's not like, okay, well, I'm shooting it, but it's designed to go with this speed, but I'm only getting this. You're actually getting those speeds out of here. And you got the reliability of revolver. And, so for somebody who's just wants a nice, good all-around big bore revolver that's not going to bankrupt them on ammo and doesn't hand load, it's a really good choice.
So what do we know about kind of production on these, as far as numbers, or he's going to be in the catalog for a while? So just like I was saying earlier, as long as there's demand, as long as there's orders and people are wanting them, and Smith Wesson's willing to make them, we're kind of open-ended on it.
It's not a limited run. Right. This is not replacing the 629 or the 680. This is just addition. We're expanding the catalog, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I really do think this 617 is going to be really popular.
It is.
Because if anybody's a mountain gun guy, chances are, unless he's one of the few 43 that's got one, he doesn't have one, and they're just super cool, man. Everybody who shot that gun yesterday was like, even people who were not revolver people were like, oh yeah, I got to have one of those.
But it's, it's a good platform to get a lot of practice in at a real inexpensive cost.
Yeah.
Ammo wise.
I think you nailed it too for someone, who's learning or entering the, double action, revolver space. It's a great place to start. I mean, it's so manageable and fun. I mean, if shooting beer cans off a fence post, I mean, whatever you want to do with that thing would be,
Yeah. It's a great little revolver. It harkens back to a time when this was the norm and not the exception.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there was a time when, whether it was Colt or Ruger or Smith Wesson, this was the kind of guns that you were going to go to the gun store and go buy.
Yeah.
And this day and age now, this is really the exception to that rule. And so if you kind of harken back to that or want that level of gun to carry, you can get it now.
Anything you want to allude to regarding the mountain gun line as far as the future?
Well, I'll just say this.
We don't want to put the cart before the horse.
I get emails and calls literally every day about, well, I can't believe you're, have you thought about doing this? All I can tell you is we have thought about every option there is. So literally, I got a notebook at my desk where it's like, okay, here's an end frame. Here's every cartridge that's humanly possible to go in an end frame.
Yeah.
Here's every barrel length you could possibly do. Here's every finish you could be doing. And it's almost like it's almost like a flow chart of what is possible. So I can promise you we have thought it, we've considered it. Hey, if it's one of the no-brainers, obviously it's on the radar. So all I can say is stay tuned, be patient. It's a catch-22. You want to go launch all the stuff at the same time because you're excited about it. But then you also realize it's like, well, gosh, man, you don't want that guy to go, well, crap, I can't afford to buy 6 new, $1,200 revolvers this month.
Right.
So we try to space it out. And all I can tell you is if you're a fan of another cartridge that's applicable to a Smith & Wesson revolver, just be patient.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a sports bracket. And we'll list all the different calibers, and then we
can do that.
Yeah,
and you do take some feedback, by the way.
Absolutely,
out there,
absolutely.
Jason scours the forums. There's some crazy stuff.
Well, and you also
we get a lot of weird emails from some of you.
But I probably won't do a 41 Action Express in this, but I'm sure somebody's going to want it. But also you got to take into consideration is what is the manufacturer capable of making at that time.
Yeah.
Is this line available at this point in time?
Yeah.
Is this going? I mean, sometimes honestly, and this not I'm talking about mountain guns in particular, but in the past we've had to skip a certain cartridge to chamber because they couldn't procure test fire ammo at that time, or the proof ammunition, especially when you start getting the obscure stuff. Yeah. So, those are kind of things that you kind of have to factor in, and so you kind of take what's available. When it can come up. So,
inside
the product development there, of how things evolve.
Yeah.
We
could do a podcast on that next time.
Yeah.
The process. We'll just go through the process,
How much time you got, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're super excited about these. I know you're super excited. You probably lose sleep at night because you're having to so many NDAs. You're having to just.
He has a notepad by the bed, so he writes down ideas.
No, I can imagine.
I bring one to the deer stand.
Because
that's where all the good stuff comes.
Absolutely. Well, no, I mean the stuff that you've got to kind of keep under wraps. That it's got to be tough.
Especially when people like beat you up about, I can't believe you haven't done this, and you know it's coming.
You're right.
You're like, all right, you're right. I'm an idiot.
Well, we're excited to get these out there. So, the original run, that we launched at SHOT Show, still making those. Be patient. Be patient with these. It's all 4 of these guns are going to be are just really high demand. Continue to be in high demand. Will be in high demand.
And keep in mind that to do things at that next level, when you're doing these kind of grips, you're doing the gold bead sights, it takes extra time.
Yeah.
We could have done it the easy way. We could have put the standard ramp sight. We could have put rubber grips on there and maybe done this stuff a little faster, get them out quicker. But then you lose that old school charm.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, you've got Bobby Tyler, bless his heart, at Tyler Gunworks, he's got a crew over there that's doing nothing but sanding grips every day. And that's to get these things. And the fact that he's able to scale and get this level of quality and fit and finish out at the volume he's doing is really unheard of in today's
That's a good point. He's working with him. We've been working with him a lot on a lot of different things because of the level of quality that he puts out there. None of it's mass manufactured. This is all.
Every one of these grips is touched by human hands.
Yeah. Human beings are
very hands-on.
So that's another thing.
American workers are contouring and sanding every one of these things.
And so, he's still taking your phone calls. That's amazing. Right
yeah, right. So. But I mean, so to keep that in mind when you're thinking about that. And I'm telling you, man, for a non-hand fitted grip, God, these things fit great. So, speed loader cut. I mean, they're the way.
They're well thought through.
Yep. Well, listen, give us a follow on Facebook at Lipsey's Guns, on Instagram at Lipsey's Guns. Chris takes all these sexy pictures of these guns that you'll see and videos that we put out there, and because he's kind of sexy himself. I'll be honest. We'll get you on camera next time. No, that's never going to happen.
I'll let you know when I'm on vacation.
So,
hey, you're number one, Rob.
Anyways, good time. It's Friday. Let's get the hell out of here. Everyone, thanks for watching. Till next time, aim higher.